Hello and welcome to episode 173 of Stand Up. Joining me today, Dr. Jason Johnson and his mom, Dr. Geri Johnson. Also, I check in with subscribers and longtime listeners, Pete Coe, who is in the Pacific Northwest and just drove through the fires with his family, and my friend Ty on the RNC, Jerry Falwell, Herschel Walker, and a lot more. I'm Pete Dominic. Time to stand up with me right now. Well, hello and welcome to Stand Up, where each and every day I reach out to the smartest people I can find and have great conversations with them, and then I share them with you. And sometimes you're those conversations, including today, where I reach out to longtime listener and subscriber Pete Coe, who just drove from Oregon to Northern California with his family, and a drive that would normally take a few hours took quite a few more because of, the hellscape that he had to drive through, fires on all sides of him. I checked in with Pete. Got to hear what that horror was like. And then I checked in with my friend Ty, longtime listener as well. I forced him to listen to the Herschel Walker testimony on behalf of Donald Trump at the RNC. We talked about Jerry Falwell and the shooting in Wisconsin and more. The featured guests, however, today are Dr. Jason Johnson and his mom, Dr. Geri Johnson, who I had a phenomenal conversation with. Very excited to share that with you. But before we get to all of that, I do want to mention a few other things here at the top, as I am sometimes known to do. Day 1314 of our long national nightmare. 70 days until Election Day. And the RNC kicked off last night, my favorite daily political newsletter. Today's Big Stuff, written by Adam Parkamenko, opens by talking about the Republican National Convention. He writes, "Welcome to Shit Week. America is about to endure a 4-day Klan rally dressed up to look like apple pie and freedom. It's gonna suck. We're planning on taking lots of showers." He goes on to say, "Who's ready to hear from the president's family? A bunch of racist criminals and the dumbest people alive." I read somebody tweeting during the RNC last night that this isn't a political party. It's a personality cult. And you got to hear one of the delegates who is from Louisiana. This guy, Ross something. Here he is.
Madam Chairman, I'm Ross Little Jr. of Louisiana, home of America's national champion football team. Also home of our great oil and gas industry.
Yeah, it's so great.
Who has been freed up from silly regulations by President Trump, but where Joe Biden would put us under the yoke of bondage once again.
Jesus.
Louisiana, also the home of thousands of hunters across our state,
Yoke of bondage.
where Joe Biden would threaten with taking away guns and ammo.
No.
Louisiana is a pro-life state.
No, it's
where
not.
we love both mother and child.
Anti-abortion.
But where Joe Biden is hiding in the dark, waiting to take the lives of our unborn babies.
Oh!
Louisiana, where businesses have thrived the past 3 years as a result of President Trump's tax cuts, but where Joe Biden is threatening with higher taxes and the dreariness of socialism.
Oh, God.
Madam Chairman, Louisiana proudly cast its 46 votes for President Donald J. Trump.
Oh, you stupid psycho. Joe Biden's hiding in the dark, really? Wow. It was a real terrifying night, and it's going to be a terrifying 4 nights of horrible threats, and it's... I don't know. What can you do? What can you say? Are you watching it? I'm sure you're not watching it. However, something you should watch is this new film called Unfit, which looks pretty good. Kellyanne Conway's husband, longtime conservative George Conway, is featured in the film. And I don't know if you've been following the Conway family drama. Kellyanne Conway apparently is leaving the Trump administration. Their daughter is trying to divorce herself from them as parents. And this, by the way, is what George Conway has to say, at least an excerpt from it, on this new film, Unfit. Here's George Conway.
My mother came from the Philippines. She came to the United States in the late 1950s. So I'm half Filipino, and the other half is some mixture of Irish, Scottish. I'm a classic American mutt. I think of myself as an American, and I just assume people aren't racist. And I tend to forget that, well, some people are. And that's sort of the lesson with Trump is I just gave him the benefit of the doubt.
These are people that if they don't like it here, they can leave.
But what he said about those members of Congress, it brought back that memory of the one time I really remember, wow, there really are people like that here. I was with my mother when I was a teenager in a parking lot in Massachusetts when somebody said to her, "Go back to your country." Sorry. And I found that to be, and it came home to me then. This man is a racist. He is evil.
The Democrat Party is now being led by 4 left-wing extremists who reject everything that we hold dear.
He's a racist, beyond any question.
He's a racist beyond any question. How about that? George Conway. And are you paying attention to the Conway family drama? It's crazy. I'm kind of obsessed with it. Very unhealthy way. Okay, so finally, before I get to my first guest here, I wanted to play a little bit of the Postmaster General's testimony with the great Katie Porter, Congresswoman from California, who hopefully is going to be California's next senator, taking over for Kamala Harris. Listen to her questioning.
You don't know the cost to mail a postcard.
I don't.
What if I want to mail you said 55 cents for a first class stamp, but what if it's like one of those greeting cards that's a square envelope, then what is the postage?
I'll submit that I know very little about postage stamp.
And what is the weight limit? You are more in the shipping logistics business. What's the weight limit for priority mail?
70 pounds.
And what is the starting rate for U.S. Post Office, USPS priority mail?
The starting rate for what?
USPS priority mail.
Starting weight, 14 ounces.
No, the weight, the price.
No.
I don't know.
He doesn't know.
Do you know about, within a million or so, can you tell me how many people voted by mail in the last presidential election?
No, I cannot.
To the nearest 10 million?
Smug prick.
I would
Is that a no, Mr. Detroit?
be guessing, and I don't want to guess.
Okay, so Mr. Detroit, I'm concerned. I'm glad you know the price of a stamp, but I'm concerned about your understanding of this agency. And I'm particularly concerned about it because you started taking very decisive action when you became Postmaster General. You started directing the unplugging and destroying of machines, changing of employee procedures, and locking of collection boxes. As a professor, I've always told my students that one of the most important rules in life is to read the instructions. Did you actually read and independently analyze the major overhaul plans before you ordered them to take effect?
Again, I will repeat that I did not order major overhaul plans. The items you identify were not directed by me. I did, and we don't need much analysis to run the trucks to a schedule.
Reclaim my time, Mr. Joy. Could you please tell me who did order these changes if you as Postmaster General did not? Because these changes have resulted in, and you have said yourself in the
The Postal Service has been around for 250 years. There were plans. There were many executives, almost 30,000 executives within the organization. And there were plans that existed prior to my arrival that were implemented.
Mr. Detroit, if you did not order these actions to be taken, please tell the committee the name of who did.
I do not know.
Mr. Detroit, did you analyze these plans before they went into effect. You, as Postmaster General, supervise whomever did apparently.
As I stated numerous times, the plans were in effect and being implemented before I arrived.
Mr. DeJoy, did you take responsibility for these changes?
I take responsibility from the day I sat in the seat for any service deterioration that has occurred. You're asking about operational changes that go on throughout the whole organization around the country.
Mr. DeJoy, I'm reclaiming my time, sir. Mr. DeJoy, will you commit to reversing these changes?
No.
Mr. DeJoy, will you commit to, I want to switch to conflicts of interest quickly, will you commit that if the Inspector General finds that you committed misconduct with regard to your financial interests in any other company, such as XPO Logistics or Amazon, will you commit, if the Inspector General finds that you committed misconduct, will you commit to then resigning?
I don't believe they will find misconduct, but I don't see why I would commit here right now to resigning for any reason.
Well, you don't think there's any reason that you should ever resign?
No reason that I've heard here today.
Okay, Mr. DeJoy, do you today, this is that you've gone back and forth a bit, I want to ask one final question. Do you own any financial interest, whether options or stocks, covered calls, bought or sold? Do you own today any financial interest in Amazon?
I do not.
The gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman may
All right,
answer the
well, I
question
wanted
in more detail if he wishes.
Okay, you smug prick. I wanted to play as much of that as I could for you because I thought Katie Porter's questions were great. I've listened to that now 3 times, and it was good each time. So good job, Congresswoman, asking him those questions that most of which he should know, at least a ballpark answer for. What a corrupt piece of shit that guy is. Just, ugh. Anyway, in other news, the people of Belarus, are still in the streets, still fighting for their freedom. And there was a time, by the way, when America would have the back of folks like that in a former Soviet republic. And a CBS Battleground poll has made clear just how bad things are. Overall, the poll found that the vast majority of Republicans love Donald Trump and everything he's doing. 51% of Republicans surveyed said that 176 deaths is acceptable. 51%. 81% of the Republicans surveyed say there's too much attention being paid to discrimination right now. Too much. Oh, enough with the concerns about discrimination. So I guess there aren't really fine people on both sides, Adam Parkamenko writes at today's Big Stuff. There's us and there's the scumbags who don't give a shit that their fellow Americans die. Sounds deplorable. 178,000 Americans have died of coronavirus, and I'm sure that actual number is a lot more than 200. In other news, smuggling gangs in Mexico have repeatedly sawed through new section of President Trump's border wall in recent months by using commercially available power tools, which leads me to my live read on power tools that can cut through Trump's wall. Come on and get our power saw. It'll cut through any border wall. Border wall power saw by Craftsman. All right, I made that tool up. But yeah, they can open gaps large enough for people and drug lords and loads. I just misspoke. I pulled a Trump. Drug loads to pass through, according to U.S. agents and officials with knowledge of the damage. And one more little nugget, which is going undercover. The Attorney General, William Barr, who's a real POS, a real scumbag, he told Rupert Murdoch before he died of natural awful causes, poisoning of one's own human soul, to muzzle Andrew Napolitano. How about that? The Attorney General of the United States told a media tycoon to tell one of his people to shut up. Andrew Napolitano, a prominent Fox News personality who's become from a friend to Donald Trump to a critic, according to a new book about Fox News. That is one of many things being reported. So that's pretty messed up. Pretty messed up interference. You've got this shooting in Wisconsin of an unarmed black man who was shot 7 times, apparently still alive. Unbelievable that he's still living, because if you watch that video, which I unfortunately did, you can't imagine that a guy shot at that close a range by a cop 7 times would survive. Shot him in front of his 4 kids who were in the car. Can you imagine? Also spoke with a listener named Pete, who I talked with about the wildfires. That's coming up. And before that, though, I want to bring you my conversation with listener Ty, who, longtime listener. I'm not going to give you any more information about him or his full name, but he was texting me last night about Jerry Falwell, so I called him to make fun of Jerry Falwell, and then I forced him to listen to Herschel Walker's allegiance to Donald Trump, and I think it's pretty funny. I'm happy to share this. And my whole rest of my conversation with Ty, here's that right now.
What's up, Pete?
Hey.
What's going on with you?
I am laughing really hard at your texts about Jerry Falwell.
Oh, that was, I'm sitting here watching the Laker game, and I'm just like, okay, I'm getting on Twitter and just doing little piddly stuff in between. And I was like, yeah, I heard about that. Oh, must have been like this morning, but I didn't pay no attention to it. But we know how his daddy was, and we know how he...
how was his daddy? I don't know.
He was an ass. But he was around during Dr. King's time. But, that was like, so I think I watched, earlier this year, I watched something on PBS that had like the history of like the secret society when conservatism first started coming around.
Yeah.
Like,
you're talking about the family?
Yeah. But, it was the whole thing with like, this is before Reagan's time. This is like, what's the guy that did the National Review? So this is his secret society group. The conservative, the modern conservative movement.
Yeah.
He was all in that. And so I was watching this thing, and he was an ass all the way back then. So, but I'm just, like I said, I grew up in church, so I kind of know the hypocrisy.
You're talking about William Buckley at the National Review?
Yeah. So
Jerry,
he's from that. His daddy was from that. Yeah.
Jerry Falwell Jr. founded this Liberty University, the school.
Right.
You know anything about that school?
Not in detail. Isn't it in South Carolina?
No, I think it's in. I'm looking it up. I think it's in Virginia.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. Okay.
So, what did you know of? What did you know of this?
Well, I read a. I don't know. Someone put it on the actual what happened.
Lynchburg, Virginia.
He resigned as the president, right? But of course, I'm listening to the Karen Hunter show. But I saw the headline that he had, his pool boy was fucking the wife, and he was there. So somebody in the mix leaked it out, or I don't know. That's how he was resigning from being president of the school. Yeah, he was. They would listen. This couple, he likes to watch his wife have sex with another guy. What's wrong with that? Nothing. But the problem is his hypocrisy, right? He's the pastor of the church. He's doing all this. It's just like when you find a conservative person who's gay, but they're writing all this fucking legislation that's anti-gay. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? The worst kind of person. Yeah. Yeah, right. It's self-hatred, like a motherfucker. Well, like, you practice it. You practice. You're living your life one way, and then you're telling other people at your university or you're passing laws to say, "Don't live your life this way." And they're not saying, "Don't act as I do, act as I say, don't act as I do." They're not saying that. They're acting like they're. We've seen these people forever. This Jerry Falwell Jr. You called him a name in the text. I want to hear you say it. I know. Yeah. The pompous ass and racist asshole.
No, that was something.
Because as I'm typing, I'm trying to think.
That was a C word.
A cuck. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
But again, that's like, okay, live your truth. Why are you trying to?
You wrote.
Be away about
this is what you wrote, Mr. Cuck. Yeah. Geri Falwell, shake my head. Worst thing isn't that he's a cuck. You read that text to me. Do you have that in front of you?
Yeah, I got let me put it on speaker.
You read that text to me. I'm recording it.
Yeah. I don't know if you can or not.
Can what?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So let me go back. Oh, yeah. Mr. Cuck, Geri Falwell. Worst thing is he isn't a cuck. It's that he's so damn hypocritical and two-faced. The people who really are.
People who really are in the alternative lifestyle. Yeah. That's a great text. It says a lot. Among being a racist asshole and a pompous prick. You know, at one point there was...
And I thought about that later. Like, like, what the fuck? To me, it's the same as those people who do like this pro-life shit. It's like, dude, rich people or well-meaning, well-off people can get anything they want. If they need an abortion, whatever they need, they can pay for it. This shit is only really for the poor people. Like, why regular people got to answer for shit that rich people can do at a moment's notice, anytime they want to? Yeah.
Well, it's not. It should never be called, by the way, pro-life. Always be called anti-abortion.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. Well, I just wanted to hear you say "cuck" and record it.
Yes.
I've been thinking about that story all day, and I was like, I want to talk about that story.
I've been so busy today because I've been working on my house. My AC went out, and I've been busy last night, right? So I've been busy. I put a new garbage disposal in. I fixed my air conditioning. Air conditioning man to come pay for a new one that's coming in a couple of weeks. But I was trying to make sure that we got some damn air until the meantime, and it's just like, oh man,
my dishwasher broke.
From home today, but I've been so busy. If I wasn't working from home, this be some miserable shit right now.
My dishwasher broke and my microwave broke at the same time.
Oh, dishwasher! I put a new one in during right at the beginning of the pandemic. They can be done, but man, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I think I might have to hire somebody. My wife said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Let's just pretend we don't have a microwave or a dishwasher anymore. Let's just live life without them." Well, what do you say?
Well, because you have teenage daughters, and it's a little different than mine. Because my kids are freaking babies still, and they freaking they're 11, but they just everything's a mess. So we need the dishwasher because we go through a lot of stuff. But
we have a dishwasher. We still have Raul. He's a nice boy, but our dishwashing machine is broken.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You didn't get it. You didn't laugh. You didn't laugh at that. I don't have a young. Raul. I don't have a young Hispanic. Actually, I don't know what ethnicity Raul
is. Maid service.
All right. I'm gonna play a little bit of our conversation on the show about Geri Falwell. I didn't say your name,
today, so I'm gonna be listening in the morning.
Can I say your first name?
Yeah, just call me Ty.
All right, my friend Ty. We talked. Because I needed something on that Geri Falwell story, and then I get your text.
Yeah. Like I said, man, I'm sitting there screaming at the TV watching the game. I finally got some cool. I got the fan right in front of me. The temp's still coming down in the house, and then she's like, I said, yeah, you know what? I just because as long as I've had Twitter, this is probably the most active I've been on it, and I noticed my Facebook's kind of slowed down a little bit. I said, no, I actually gained followers because once I woke up and I heard that story about Wisconsin, and then I went to YouTube and watched a couple videos, and I was like, yeah, I was really fucking worked up.
Well, let me ask you, did you hear or see, I know you've been watching the basketball game, you haven't been watching the RNC?
Hell no.
He just put out all his black friends.
I only heard about what's the Candace Owens and maybe one other person.
Herschel Walker.
Really?
Made a long, impassioned, poorly delivered speech.
Really? Are you playing highlights on the show?
I'm not of Herschel Walker. I don't want to.
No, don't do it.
I want to play it and get your reaction to it.
Let me tell you how insignificant he is. The only mentioning of Herschel Walker is his football days. Nobody talks in the black community. Nobody talks about him.
Well, I mean, that's probably most athletes, though, right? Do we talk about athletes after their time is over?
Yeah. I mean, people talk about Kobe, and they're going to talk about LeBron, and no, it's the super conservative ones. Nobody talked about this. This is what happened with like OJ. OJ wasn't black until his ass got on the stand.
How about this?
I'm not an actor.
Here he is.
A singer or a politician.
You hear him?
I'm Herschel Walker. Yeah. Most of you know me as a football player, but I'm also a father, a man of faith, and a very good judge of character. I've known Donald Trump for 37 years, and I don't mean just casual ran into him from time to time. I'm talking about a deep personal friendship.
What do you think so far? I paused it.
Fuck that.
Okay, let me continue.
I watched him as an owner of a professional football team. Right after he bought the team, he set out to learn. He learned about the history of the team, the players, the coaches, every detail. Then he used what he learned to make the team better. I watched him in the boardroom.
What, Ty?
Like the amount of dick sucking in that. Like, dude, only people who pay attention to that are, I can envision right now, this Fox News. Because these motherfuckers do not know about football. Like, he's not, I don't know, man.
Hold on, you interrupted Herschel. Hold on, here he is.
In the middle of a big meeting, but if one of the kids was on the phone, he dropped everything to take the call. He taught me that the family should be your top priority. I watched him treat janitors, security guards, and waiters the same way he would treat a VIP.
Like shit, right?
What was that?
Like shit, right? Gotta be.
I see him treat everybody the same way, like total shit. Equally shitty. Hold on.
Wait a minute. I heard, what's that stuff they said today about his sister? Said some stuff.
Oh, you didn't hear his own sister trashed him?
Yeah.
Well, hold on. One thing at a time. More Herschel, please.
He feels special because he knew they were. He understands that they are the people who make this country run. They clean, they cook, they build, they drive.
What the fuck? Oh my God.
They deliver. He told me, Herschel, make an effort to get to know people. Remember their names. That stuck with me. One time, I planned to take his kids to Disney World with my family. At the last minute, Donald said he'd like to join us. So there he was, in a business suit, on It's a Small World Ride.
Oh my God. Why do I have the envision of Django Unchained? Like, you got to be kidding me, right?
He reminds you of Samuel Jackson's character?
Yes.
Hold on.
Bingo. That's what I'm thinking in my mind right now. Like,
it just shows you what a caring, loving father he is. It hurt my soul to hear the terrible names that people call Donald. The worst one is racist.
What? Oh, my gosh.
Okay, there's one more minute.
I take it as a personal insult that people would think I've had a 37-year friendship with a racist. People who think that don't.
What's that?
Huh? Like, what, you slave people? Like, are you serious?
Know what they're talking about. Growing up in the Deep South, I've seen racism up close. I know what it is, and it isn't Donald Trump.
Oh, so now he's what is this now? Like, you got to call somebody the N-word? But I'm pretty sure he does off camera.
Oh, yeah.
Like, come on, man.
Sounds the exact thought I had. He's like, he is not a racist. I'm like, he says the N-word a lot. Like, what would it take? More Herschel?
Yo.
More Herschel. Almost done.
Just because someone loves and respects the flag, our national anthem, and our country, doesn't mean they don't care about social justice. I care about all those things. So does Donald Trump. He shows how much he cares about social justice in the black community through his actions. And his action speaks louder than stickers or slogans on a jersey. He keeps right on fighting to improve the lives of black Americans and all Americans. He works night and day. He never stops. He leaves nothing on the field. Some people don't like his style, the way he knocks down obstacles that get in the way of his goals. People on the opposing team didn't like when I ran over them either. But that's how you get the job done. I pray every night that God gives him more time. Give him 4 more years. He has accomplished so much almost all by himself under constant attack. But there's still more work to be done. If you love America and want to make it better, Donald Trump is your president. He's my president. And I'm blessed to call him friend.
He sounds like a motherfucker, like the slave catchers be following the dudes, like he going after the, like, nah, homie. Like, what are you doing? Nah. Nah.
Oh, it was so brutal.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Seeing him.
Like, hey, in one sentence, like he mentioned basketball, like with the jerseys, because I'm watching basketball. They can't stand that. I know they can't stand it because it's Black Lives Matter on the damn court.
It says Black Lives Matter all over.
And every jersey's like, say her name and all kind of, like, they can't stand it. I was like, oh my gosh. Yo.
I think, is this the Django? Hold on, what's his name?
Oh, yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah, that's
this nigga up on that nail. Oh, Steve,
yeah.
You have nails for breakfast? What's the matter? Why you so ornery? You miss me? Huh? Oh, yes, sir. I miss you like a hog miss fly, like a baby miss mammy titty. I miss you like I misses a rock in my shoe. I ask you, who this nigga?
All right,
man. Oh man,
I can't use all that.
That's like a carbon copy.
That's
between between Herschel Walker and what's up? Did you hear about what's the two girls?
Diamond and
Silk, and they said, "Oh, is this the racist stuff they be talking about on Fox News because they didn't renew their contract or whatever happened? They mad that the check is gone."
They ran over me one time on TV.
No.
Yes, I was on with them. I gotta find that clip.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
is it on YouTube?
I gotta find that. I probably have it somewhere because that was.
Oh my gosh!
Brutal.
I usually avoid. I don't even hear. Like, if I'm hearing stuff, it's because you guys are playing it on your show or something. But I cannot stomach the stuff that they put out. And I have coworkers who listen to the shit. And sometimes you get into a vehicle. You can tell who's the last person been in it because the shit that's on the radio.
Do you? I so often hear people compare, in that case, the Herschel Walker to the Samuel Jackson character in the Django Unchained.
Yeah.
Do you feel like anybody who kind of praises Trump, it really legitimately is like that kind of a guy? He's just self-serving.
Okay, so you hear the stuff going on with Ice Cube, right? Or anybody
I heard he's made some controversial statements recently.
So but he's well off. And people who are well off, especially at that level, they don't like paying taxes. They're not like on our health. Right? You get what I'm saying? Like, I have.
What did he say about paying? What did Ice Cube say about paying taxes?
Not paying taxes, but it's their actions. Like, are they that crazy to not? I know people have this purity thing going on with the Democratic Party and all that kind of stuff. Because but I'm like, dude, this man that's in office right now, I heard that he's doing, what is that? He had the crowd chanting 12 more years. listen, I thought about that shit in 2016. Like, what the fuck is y'all thinking about? This is not the guy, right? Like, we gonna be in fucking ovens fucking around with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, at what cost are you, what is your point?
You want to pay less taxes, but they're going to put...
When you're super rich,
yeah,
you got a passport, you can go to a different country. Like, you're not...
Well, you don't have normal concerns.
On our
you
level.
Have average concerns. You don't have to worry about health care.
Right.
All the normal...
You got private planes. If they want to get everybody in their family, they can just... Like, nah, homie. Like, nah, we can't... We got to get this guy out of here. Right? And then there's this whole thing of people lack understanding of civics. Like, I always that's my new thing now. I'm like, did you skip government class in high school? Like, that's what the fuck is wrong with people. Like, they don't know how the Constitution works. They don't know how, what the stuff, people make these broad complaints about stuff. I'm like, did you go to the local board meeting with the city council? Are you going to the PTA meetings? Are you doing anything? Like, it's not just showing up in November. You gotta
being organized, being active, being engaged.
You gotta understand people not understanding the political process because what do you call it? Democracy is slow and messy, and it's a lot of work. Like, it took 98 years to get a fucking Civil Rights Act. Got 3 different fucking times. Like, come on now, are we gonna just like give up now? If we want reparations or whatever kind of idea you want, it ain't for me right now. It's for the kids, the grandkids.
How about settling for the Civil Rights, the Voting Rights Act being restored? How about that? How about it took 98 years to get civil rights, then they snatched them from us.
So people want this so I say, okay, this you can't say I want, because we don't have a king, right? He's not going to just exit.
Kind of.
Well, you know what I mean. Like, I know it's not supposed to.
We got a prince and a princess and this whole family. I mean,
it's a process. Congress, the Senate, the president, the governor. Like, these things have to work in unison. Like, it's a process. You don't just wake up tomorrow and say, man, I want this legislation tomorrow. That's not how it works. But people are so dejected. It's easy to get dejected because shit's fucked up if you pay attention too close. Shit's happening every day and all the time. But I'm thinking to I always tell people, like, I'm glad you were not around when they had, like, whether it be the 1776, whether it be 1850 when we had Civil War. Like, you have to fight, and it ain't just for you today. It's for tomorrow. Your grandkids, your great grandkids.
Yeah, but
we weren't. They come around and they say,
we weren't prepared. We weren't prepared to fight. Things are going in the right general direction.
Right. That's part of the dejection, because I always talk to my mother. I said, "What the fuck happened to y'all? You came right after the Civil Rights era. So this is those people that were like 18 years old right around the Vietnam era. They dropped the ball. That generation sucks. They're not part of the baby boomers. It's the one right after that. So that would be my parents, like 18 years. Because my parents just turned like 65.
You just defamed an entire generation of Americans.
Yes. I told my parents, because I remember my great-grandmother used to tell us stories and pass stuff down. And, you'd hear, especially, like I said, I come from a church family. They don't really care. It ain't in the front of their mind. I'm like, what the fuck was y'all doing? Now we have to do so much work.
You came from a military family. How dare you?
Yeah, all of that. So it's like we have to do so much work to basically do what they didn't do. It's like, goddamn.
Yeah, I do. I share a lot of that grievance. I do. I think about that a lot.
But now, you know what I'm saying? Like, it takes a long time. And so I'm like, okay, if we get some legislation passed, it might not be for me right now. It might be for my kids, which are 11. So when they grow up, they're not going to look at me. What the fuck was you doing?
What my kind of white guy of my generation, fairly privileged gripe, but still legitimate gripe is that Clinton and Republicans deregulated the financial industry so that the banks could get rid of the
Yes.
rules and create these
Yes.
horrible,
Yes.
poisonous schemes that destroyed the economy and put my wife and I underwater on our mortgage because we had
everybody.
it going in the right
That's
direction.
everybody.
We saved, we had good credit, we bought a house in the the most affluent part of the country where it's always guaranteed to go up, and we got fucked.
It's a universal thing. And then, of course, depending on where you are on the scale, certain people suffer a little more than others, and some people can recover.
Yeah.
But everybody is on the same. Because I remember when I bought my first house, and I was single at the time, but I was in the military at the time. And it was like, this is the 80-20, and this was the fuck we giving you. And then when I hear Karen Hunter say, and I know she got money. She ain't got no kids. She got money.
Yeah.
And they gave her a fucking 80-20. I said, no, this is different. This is a different thing.
Yeah.
You got people that got means and they still get an 80-20. Like, there's a problem.
Oh, yeah.
They
got us real good.
People.
Got us real good on that.
Folks. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, but like I said, it's the same thing with these people in this. Like today, I was really harping on that whole obedience thing. I was talking to my wife earlier about that. And it's just like, this whole thing it's got to be, it's religious based. It's the whole thing. When someone says, someone of authority, and you ignoring them.
Oh, yeah.
Like, listen, motherfucker, do we have a constitution or we don't? Right?
No, this is the party is. You're absolutely right. You call it a lot of different ways to name it.
And then the first thing someone says in these damn feeds is like, "What if he was reaching in with the guy? I don't give a fuck if he was or not."
Oh,
we have a Second Amendment, so yeah, he should.
You're talking about you're talking about the shooting in Wisconsin now?
Yeah, and I'm like, okay.
Did you see that video?
We have the Second Amendment for the nation, and then each state has its own thing. And guess what? You don't even need a permit to carry a gun, open carry in Wisconsin. So what the fuck is it? Like, it ain't your business to be asking. How about that?
Did you watch that video?
I did. I watched all of them, and it's terrible. It's very, it's hurtful. But what I do is like, I will never let them. I'm grieving with the families. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know all of them. So when you hear the list of names, I done seen all of them.
Can you?
And I'm pissed off each time. It's never a degrading, or it's never a time where I'm less like, don't worry about it. No, man, this is because I see myself in them. I have kids. I have 2 boys, 11 years old, and I see that. I'm like, what the fuck? You can't ride the bikes. It's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? You know what I'm saying? I told my wife, I said, this shit goes down, I don't know how I'm going to breathe. I don't know. But be prepared, because I'm not this is crazy. What is the recourse? I don't even know. You know what I'm saying? Like, are we just, because to me, that's kind of like, it reminds you of Germany 1945, right? It's like, are we just supposed to just take it? Like, whatever, right?
Well, I would say more 30. Right. I'd say more 39.
Yeah, right.
45, they were starving, cold.
Right. But you get my point.
I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. What do you say? Let me trigger you. Really lash out at these people. When people say, if you would just listen to what the police officer was telling you to do and stop resisting arrest, everything and everyone would have been fine.
No. Because they killed Dr. King, they killed Medgar Evers with an elephant gun, and he wore a suit. So I don't care about this. What's the term?
Obedience.
Behavior is behavioral politics, like cultural. Like someone says, pull up your pants, and they won't look at you. No, they killed you in church shoes, right? Wearing a suit on a Sunday. On Bloody Sunday. Like, it doesn't matter. And by the way, the Constitution matters. Like, I don't have to talk to you. If I'm breaking up a fight, I'm doing your job. How about you giving me your paycheck? You're supposed to be doing that. And I'm getting in the car to take my kids home because we leaving the drama. Because I'm the person that leaves drama. I don't want to hang around. If I ain't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, let that man leave. He ain't got to talk to you. This whole thing about, well, you're going to come talk to me because I want you to. I saw a video in New York. This man was getting off work. He's walking. He got headphones on, so he's oblivious to anything going on around him. He's just walking. And a regular undercover plainclothes officer stopped him, and he like, first of all, you're plain clothes. So it's like, what the fuck? Who are you? Right? It's not like he's wearing a uniform. And next thing you know, 3 minutes later, it's about 10 cops taking him down. And I'm like, what in the hell? You can't walk home from work without being harassed.
Do you think that there's a change in people's consciousness because all of the videos? Do you feel like so, as any Black American growing up in a predominantly Black neighborhood saw these, well, the rest of us are seeing videos.
Right, because COVID has slowed the world down, right?
It really, that's a great way of saying it. That's a great way.
Nobody has, ain't nothing open. Well, in a few states, right? So there's nothing open.
Watched everything.
People just watching everything. And guess what? All these people talking about people in the street, you got to be in the street. That ain't my job. Everybody can do something. I mean, I'm a person that I'm going to be in the voting booths. I might go to a couple of community meetings or something like that. That's for the young people. We need to be in the street. Yeah. You need to be on all levels. You need to be in the voting booth. You need to be in the street. You need to be in the courthouse. You need to be in the community meetings and stuff. Like, it takes all of that because you cannot let off. So that's what they want.
Well, you're also
everybody has time, right? So they want to.
But you're also a great and dedicated father. I feel like I take that myself. Like I'm raising two human beings to be decent human beings.
Right.
And that's an important responsibility or role. You can't always be out protesting.
Well, I'm just saying against those people who talk against those people in the street.
Yeah.
Right. Because you seen what's happening in what was this? What in Texas? It's someplace where they allowed the cops were on the end of the block and they allowed the Klans and the Proud Boys to attack the protesters.
Oh yeah, that was in.
You see? Oh my!
Is that Fort Collins, Colorado?
It's somewhere in the upper Midwest. I'm like, or it might be in Portland. I thought it was
Portland.
There might have been Portland, yeah. And I'm like, man, that's like Charleston times 1,000. Or Charlottesville times 1,000. I'm like, yo. But you know what? They need to be in the street. If nothing's happening, they need to keep it in the. Don't let them forget. Don't let it off.
I'm not trying to get in a fight in the street with a bunch of Proud Boys.
No, but again, that's not our job. That's somebody else's job.
I'd like to be like a long distance paintball sniper. They bring in paintball guns now.
Oh man, yeah.
Why don't we just settle everything with a paintball fight?
They're doing. Then people got smart and start bringing their air blowers to blow the damn.
Oh yeah, the lacrosse sticks to throw the tear gas. I like that.
God. I'm like, but you know, every situation since our beginning, you got to be in the street. You think England liked the fact that people was blowing up the Tea Party in 1776? We weren't supposed to be doing that. How about that? It's supposed to be under the king's rule, and you chose not to. But this is 2020, and we got a different fight now. This whole idea that they don't need to have violence. Really? That's how it works. We went over, the whole world went over to Germany to save them. It takes violence sometimes, and people don't, I guess because it's uncomfortable.
Well, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, what? I don't want to do that. Trust me, I'm not out in the street doing stuff, but I know it's necessary. I'm just not my job. You know what I'm saying? Somebody need to be doing it. They haven't brought Breonna Taylor's killers, and guess what? Every night, people being arrested. I said, don't let up.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Keep going, and it's been fucking 5 months.
Those arrogant motherfuckers.
Keep going until they do it. Keep going.
Talk about horrific crimes. Talking about undercover cops. That story, by the way.
That was one night. I think I think they were at the governor's house or somewhere, and they arrested 400 people in one night.
Protester?
Yeah.
That must have been fun.
But, you know, it's like Dr. King said one time. He's like, you don't have enough paddy wagons. But it's different now because back then they didn't have as many jails as we got now. But keep doing it. I mean, I remember watching like if you ever watch the documentaries on school desegregation, they're singing hymns walking into the paddy wagon.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You just got to somebody's got to do it. And guess what?
I feel like
I'm not going to be in the street, but I might send $5 for somebody, you know, help their bail, whatever.
I feel like we're witnessing that right now. I mean, it's been going on forever in Portland.
So these are the things, like what they say, like everybody can do something. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to be in the street. You're not going to be in the street. But if I decide to send $5 to the Innocence Project or some public organization that's helping bail the protesters out and help them get lawyers or whatever the case, everybody can do something.
I'm going to interview public defenders from my shed.
Oh, I've been loving those lawyers you've been having, man. Those are great.
Yeah, I'm going to talk with a whole bunch of people from New Orleans about the Hurricane Katrina anniversary is this week.
Yeah, right.
Trying to get
that was a whole nother. I remember being in there. I was in the Air Force, in the DC Air Guard, and I remember we had just come back from deployment in Hawaii. Like, and I had to remind. I was like, you do know, I have people down there. I'm from Baton Rouge, and I have family in New Orleans. Like, those are my people drowning. Here, everybody is. We're wearing a uniform. This is like, no, man. All this, they want to throw those people away because they're sitting on the roof. I'm like, what kind of country is this? This is some bullshit. And you want to get mad that people are angry at that or talk. Yeah. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, quiet is kept. A lot of people have been getting passports and expatting. But the problem is we're in Corona. So everybody you can't travel to a lot of places.
What do you hear about that? What do you mean? Like, who's leaving? You know people leaving?
Huh? I don't know any personally, but I've listened to an interview yesterday with somebody who went to Mexico. They left this motherfucker. They found a country that will take them. Because that's the whole discussion. It's like, okay, where the hell are you going? Because there's other countries that still got problems.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I know.
Mexico.
You're going to run that. That is an interesting or kind of philosophical question.
Man.
You're talking about fighting, and this generation has to fight.
Well, it's one of those things, right? They say we're getting killed in the streets here. We're dealing with this pompous ass president, and he might still be president. Hell, if he don't get out of office, we're in trouble with Bill Barr and all that bullshit. So I'm like, people's like, where can we move to and get a job? We're still working and all this kind of shit. You can't go everywhere. And shit, there's places that don't like black people over there. So it's like, you got to be careful where you go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, black people have to limit their choices way more. Because my wife and I are like, well, Australia or Norway? And you and your wife,
right.
You and your wife are like, South Africa? Or
not really.
Or Bermuda.
Kinda,
Martha's Vineyard should be its own country.
Yeah,
I think black people should revolt and take over Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, that's true.
Obama's got a place
I've been trying to plan for 3 years now. Go to Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, it's beautiful. I went once.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah,
all right, dude. I love talking to you.
Okay, sir.
That was fun.
All right, man.
Can I play our conversation?
I don't care, man. I would love it.
I won't say your name.
No, don't worry about it, man. Put it this way: nobody that I know or that's important to me listen to the show, so it's not gonna hurt nobody. It's not gonna come back to me. So,
all right, I'm gonna make you anonymous, though.
All right,
it'll just be Ty.
All right,
but I know who you are.
I'm going back to my game now.
Did you press pause?
I did. You damn right.
Enjoy that.
This is an important.
Who do you like?
LeBron. I'm rooting for the Lakers.
Oh, is that right?
Right now. Yeah. So this is on DVR, so it doesn't matter.
You enjoying
the work till 2:00. So
you enjoying the NBA season this way?
Yeah. Like I said, it was a 5-month hiatus.
Yeah.
Then when the things finally come back, and I started watching it, I missed a few of the scrimmage games. And then once I started watching, I'm like, this is actually some pretty good basketball. But, it always is, postseason.
All right, bud. Well,
Playoffs.
Enjoy, and thanks for talking to me. Appreciate it. Always good to hear your voice.
All right, sir.
All right, I'll talk to you. All right. Later. So there goes my friend Ty. I don't want to tell you anything else about him to reveal any of his identity, but this podcast both welcomes everyday experts, academics, scholars, scientists, journalists, people who really know what they're talking about on all the important issues that affect us, as well as listeners and subscribers to the show. If you're not a subscriber, I'd love to have you join up. Go to the link, the paid subscription link in the show notes, or patreon.com, and I'd love to have you on the show as well. So if you've got a perspective on things, I might just call you and throw you on like I did Ty, and later on I do with my friend Pete, who just drove through the wildfires. That's coming up after my conversation with scholar, journalist, pundit, my friend Dr. Jason Johnson, and more importantly, his mom, Dr. Geri Johnson, and I all connected on Zoom on Monday, and we had a fascinating conversation. Jason's a regular guest that you'll know from the show and, of course, from MSNBC, and he's a professor at Morgan State University. He is a writer at The Grio, and like I said, a contributor to MSNBC. Well, I sat down with his mom, and we talked about her life. She was in the FBI. She got her PhD after she retired, and it's just an awesome conversation here. Oh, and I left all the opening on because it was just so funny listening to Jason Dredge's mom and all the technical stuff, and we had some laughs. So I just kept it in there because I thought it was good. It was a good way to start the conversation. Here it is.
Hey, wait a minute. Look, you want me to turn on the light up there because it's dark?
Yes, Mom. Turn the light up there.
Dr. Johnson,
and turn off the side light.
Could you shine some more lights directly into my retinas?
You're funny.
I feel like I'm being pulled over. I don't like the way this is making me feel unsafe. Officer.
And so, Mom, there we go.
Look at this lady. I like it.
Look, I don't know how to do this.
Do you want her to close? So the curtain, the shutters in the back, those are down, right, Mom?
Yeah, you want me to close them?
Yes, because that's also we want.
So I'm not going to be in the dark. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
I want the light on your face if possible. Okay. Where is Mom?
So Mom is at her. No. Close it, Mom. Close it.
Oh, close it. Oh, yeah. They gotta go up then.
Watching someone that you've gotten to know pretty well interact with their parent for the first time is unique and uncommon, especially at our age. And so anything that happens, any interaction is fascinating, you know?
Okay, it's closed.
Yes.
Looks great.
All right. Awesome, Mom.
All right.
Hey, Mom.
Okay.
Can you, the last thing I'll ask you, and it's not that important, but if I can get more of you and less of the room, like if you can bring that camera down at all, or bring your, is it a?
It's my laptop.
Yeah, there you go. So just like pull it forward. Yeah.
How about that?
That is great. I'm
is my clone.
So excited. I'm looking at you guys back and forth. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's hilarious. Thank you.
I'm so excited. Is that okay?
It is okay, but you know what? I'll tell you, because I rewatched your interview with the pastor fella.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I got really excited. So excited, in fact, I don't want to get over my skis. But I was like, this lady, I'm already telling you right now, she's a regular. I could tell you right now, she has a lot to say, and
that's a lot. That's a lot.
A great way of saying it. So
the only person that makes me quiet. So yes, this is.
So I'm not sure we need your son here, to be honest with you, but I'm not gonna. I do think that I was trying to think. It's always hard to to have a conversation, an interview with two people, three people. But I did think about how you can obviously both talk about anything from experience, but how you maybe in this conversation you might end up sharing some experiences, and your son might end up giving some data and some more scholarly, why do we see things that way as well. So that might happen. It also might not. It might go completely off the rails, and we all.
Mom's got a doctorate. My mom's got a doctorate, so she'll come up with some fancy pants numbers too.
Well, Dr. Johnson's, are we ready?
Yes,
I'm ready. I am ready. Thank you.
How much time do we have? Because I want to do at least 4 hours.
we got about 30 minutes.
Okay.
30 minutes
Okay, let's go. I'm very honored to have these two special people on my show today, a son and a daughter. This is the first time, a son and his mother. I'm so nervous. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, and I am very excited to be doing it with Jason Johnson and his mom, Geri Johnson. Dr. Jason Johnson, Dr. Geri Johnson, 2 PhDs joining me. I should warn both of you not to be intimidated with my associates in humanities. Try to keep
the
up.
way you always flex on us, Pete, like, with that associates in humanities is really hard to do.
Try to keep up.
Edgewise.
Well, there's so much that I wanted to talk with you both about, but let me just start by introducing Dr. Geri Johnson, Jason, your mom, to my audience, because you've been on the show many times. Everybody knows you and knows you from MSNBC as well. But let's talk to Mom, who grew up. Let's start with your childhood. You grew up in Newark, New Jersey. You were born in the mid-50s, I think I have right.
That is correct.
What a fascinating time to be a little black girl in Newark. Tell me about about anything you want about what it was like to grow up in Newark at that time.
Well, it was a pretty exciting time. I was born in what we call the inner city of Newark, New Jersey. And in particular, during the 60s, I experienced the riots. And so as a preteen, I was pretty involved during that time with local politics. Jason's grandmother, my mother, Ida Clark, was an early activist, if you will, senior activist. So she was involved a lot in local community politics. She was a city commissioner. And so our lives were totally involved in being good citizens, or at least participating in the citizenry and where we live. So everything from working with the homeless, local law enforcement, petitioning for better service in where we lived. We were actually residents of low-income housing. So we were part of that whole exercise, if you will, that whole beta experiment that didn't last, of moving out of tenements that were low-income into the projects where there was going to be brick and mortar, so you didn't worry about getting burned out and things like that. And it brought with it, I'll say, some good things and some bad things. It was a source of community for us. I remember growing up, everybody knowing everybody. And when you went to school with your friends from kindergarten to middle school. And it was just a great community. And of course, things changed as we moved into the 60s and the 70s. And I actually was a part of this experiment. I will share this. If you've ever seen the movie Morgan Freeman's Lean on Me.
Yeah. What's his name?
Well, that's correct. Morgan Freeman.
The guy he played, the principal. We were just talking about him recently. Joe Clark.
Joe Clark. Yes. Okay. Well, we had something very similar take place in Newark, where I was involved, where the Archdiocese of New Jersey, they were petitioning the state for federal funding. And because of separation of church and state, they weren't allowed to identify any particular religious group or whatever to give them money. So they sort of came up with this deal where they would say, well, the students in Newark in particular, Newark's school system, they're not getting a good education, and we can prove it. And if we prove that to you, perhaps you can find some way you can fund us in some manner. So they rounded up all these young people. I happen to be one of them, and Jason's dad too, from various schools throughout the city. And they tested us with the understanding that we would fail, and they would prove that our education that we were getting was under par. And what happened was I was one of like 18 students, and I aced the test. And as a result of that, I ended up being allowed to attend St. Vincent's Academy in Newark, New Jersey. It's an all-women's school. I attended from 10th to 12th grade. I had Jason's brother as a senior. I was a teenage mom, and I was valedictorian. So the experiment that they intended, for their purposes didn't exactly work out, but it worked out for me.
They tested the wrong lady.
Yeah. You know what? I was a kid. Yeah. I was, a junior in high school, a sophomore. And I think what they missed was it wasn't so much about the education in the books. In our home, my mother was very much the way I tried to be. She instilled education in us. We had a sense of community. We had a sense of responsibility drilled in us. And so it didn't matter what the outside said.
Well, what happened with your son? Seems like it went all awry.
This is where, okay, so I want to put this in context. This is where the Jason, the underachiever, comes into play here. So, and this is...
it's going to be therapy. Okay.
This is therapeutic here. This is both for Pete and the audience in general. I think, and I've heard various versions of like how my parents met and all this other sort of stuff. Yeah. I don't think it can be imparted upon this country enough how fundamentally different. I mean, look, all parents, Pete, you're a parent. Everybody's parents deals with the like how I grew up versus they grew up. But it can't be imparted enough on people how different it was that my mother grew up in segregated, riot-filled cities in the 60s and 70s. And I grew up in majority white suburbs in Nebraska and places like the world that my parents were trying to raise me in was light years different from what was even legal.
Did you say kids. White years different?
It was white years different. It was exceptionally white.
White years and light years, actually, yes.
So what does that? Yeah, what does that do? Like it's a really good point as to the way that your mom grew up. Versus the way that you grew up, and I would love to know how your mom sees that as well. But finish your point as to what that means for you.
So it created,
and your brother.
It created a lot of intergenerational challenges that I think up until recently just haven't even been properly researched. Like what it was for Black parents, like. It's almost like how immigrants have to read. Like if you come to this country from Jamaica or Kenya or England or Nigeria and Germany, and you got to raise your kid here, and it's like I don't even understand my.
That's what I was thinking. My wife is first generation Italian. Her parents are insane lunatics that don't even speak English.
Exactly.
And it's like she grew up here, so she had to translate every custom, much less language barrier.
Yeah. So it's like. It's almost like if you are a Black Gen Xer like me and your parents lived through segregation, everything else like that.
Yeah.
It's almost like being an immigrant in your own country. Like what I was going through, meeting girls when you're in an all white high school is a totally crazy thing to your Black parents who are like, what the hell? This could be it's very different. It's very challenging.
So how do you see the difference?
I didn't recognize when I was a kid.
Geri, how do you see the difference between the way that you grew up as a little girl in Newark in the 50s and 60s versus the way that you raised your sons?
Well, first of all, there's some good and some bad in that. I think a lot of things that really resonate with me even today and that made me the person I am, I think, unfortunately, my children may have missed because I purposefully didn't want them to see all the bad. So, with the example that I gave you for my own growing up, the first thing my mother did was take advantage of that opportunity for me to go to St. Vincent's. Although it had been an exercise or an experiment, if you will, once I got accepted to the school, I think this is germane as well, it was only for the first year. So after that first year of high school, which was 10th grade, there was tuition to pay. Well, my mother was a factory worker. My father was a truck driver. We lived in low-income housing. And so the idea that you could go to a private school while all of your peers were still attending the local public schools was, again, a way of pulling me out of that environment and providing me with a different way of life. That's what I tried to do for my sons as well. But to make that point even greater, when my 10th grade year ended and I was no longer going to be able to attend because now I'd have to pay, the experiment was over and so forth and so on, my mother bartered her custodial services to pay my tuition.
Wow.
She went to the archdiocese, the Mother Superior, the people who ran the school, and said, hey, my daughter has done so well here for her 10th grade. How can she come back? And they're like, no, she'll have to reapply. And then there's the $1,300 a year tuition, which was insurmountable. And so I'm with my mother while she's making this petition, by the way, which was kind of embarrassing. But now I see what she was willing to do for me.
Right.
And so she actually negotiated and they agreed to allow her to clean the toilets so that I could go to school. And I walked the halls watching her do that and change classes and made sure I was on time and ended up being valedictorian.
But they wouldn't let her speak because she had my brother during the school year.
Correct.
Because you got pregnant while you were a student, they wouldn't let you speak, even though you had the best grades.
The highest GPA. But I'll tell you how that played out, too. I had a very good friend. All of my friends there were wonderful. They're all women that I'm still connected to in some way. A small graduating class. But I had one friend in particular. She was Irish. Rosemary, she's still there, I know. And we were brought into the Mother Superior's office, and we were told what our GPAs were. And the agreement was, because I had done this horrible thing and had a son while I was in high school, that didn't represent who they wanted the Vincentian woman to be, giving the keynote or the valedictorian speech. And so I was disappointed. Rosemary and I talked about it, and we said, okay, so I was told I could be salutatorian. So we went about writing our individual speeches. And on the day of graduation, with my mom in the audience, with the actual graduation being in a church, St. Joseph's Church. We marched across from St. Vincent's and all the pomp and circumstance. They called the name for the valedictorian. Of course, that person last. So they called the salutatorian, and Rosemary stood up, and the whole dais went nuts. They were like, they just said Geraldine, and Rosemary stood up. Nobody said a word. She gave her speech. Everybody went nuts. And then they said, and the last speaker will be the valedictorian. And I took the podium. And it really goes down in history. It really,
you pulled a bait and switch on Mother Superior?
On Mother Superior.
Mother Superior, by the way, for a second, for a dumb second, I was like, her name is Superior? No, that's like the name they took, or that's the role, or what a weird... These religious schools are.
I remember both of mine. We had actually Sister Eileen Bradshaw and Sister Bernadette. So we had two different Mother Superiors during my time.
You had Sister Authoritarian, Mother Plutocrat. I mean, it's just this authoritarian regime. Yeah, the oligarchs of the school. I mean, what a fascinating childhood, but also I think it's really important to know that you experienced a lot of segregation and racism, even though, you grew up in the, quote, North in Newark. Correct. I mean, I think people don't really understand what Newark was. I don't, in the 50s and 60s, but you experienced all kinds of horrible circumstances and scenarios, which, I mean, I heard you talk about that story when you were 8 years old with the ice cream.
Oh, yes. I mean, that was New Jersey. Yeah.
I mean, so talk to me a little bit about what New Jersey was like then for a little black girl who had to sit outside on the porch that of the family her mother took care of. That was a pretty heartbreaking story. I was imagining you as an 8-year-old girl during that time.
Yeah. Well, again, like I said, my mom, she did whatever it took for her to take care of our family. And in addition to being a factory worker for most of my, my childhood, she did what was called domestic work, which we know fondly from the movie with Viola Davis as The Help.
More importantly, the book. Yeah.
Yes, the book as well. And so, yes, during the summer when there was no school, and there was no one to really care for me, I would have to attend, whatever event my mother was going to. So she went to work. She went to work in West Orange, New Jersey. She did daycare for kids. She cleaned houses. And I would accompany her. And there were a number of homes where the people she worked for wouldn't allow me inside. And so we would take 3 buses to get there.
Wow.
And I was actually friends with many of the children that she kept. 2 boys in particular ended up being doctors, one of them actually taking care of my mother later on. But most of the family said, you're not allowed to bring her. And so I would sit on the porch or wherever I could find cover. And sometimes really my mother would bring laundry out to me to fold, or, flatware to polish or something to pass the time. Other than that, I would read books. So, it wasn't all that bad. I would read, and I got to see what they did in the community. They had beautiful pavilions and swimming pools and so forth that I would never imagine one day I would be able to have for myself, let alone to go into. And so all that was building, I think, in me, the kind of life I wanted to have for my children later. I saw what my mother did, and I thought I could step it up an ante just a bit if I do get my education. If I provide a way out for me, I can not only take her, but I can set the platform for my own kids. And that's what I tried to do with Jason.
Jason, Jason, did you know Grandma Ida?
Oh, yeah. So me, this is the thing about like my understanding of Newark by association. So because of where we grew up, when my parents had me, it's me and my older brother. And when my parents had me, we were in Newport News, Virginia, right, Ma?
Correct.
How much older is your brother? What's the age?
4 or 5 years.
4 years. 4 years, 8 months.
4 years, 8 months. Mom,
of course I would know.
My older brother. So like, my experience, we moved to Germany, everything else like that. My experience of my grandmother in Newark was very different, because by the time we were going back there on a regular basis, and my brother and I joke about this all the time, like when we were kids, we could go outside and play.
Right.
By the time we were 9, 10, 11, it was like, you can't go outside unless you go with your cousins.
Right.
By the time I was a teenager, like crack and everything else, like, but by the time you got to the 90s, it was like, you cannot go outside unless you were with family and going to a specific thing and then coming back. And I will never forget taking like...
Why? Hold on. Why?
Because the neighborhood got more and more dangerous.
Yes.
What was happening?
Drugs, lack of investment, Reagan's policies in the 80s.
Yes.
I lost family to drugs and violence and things like that. Just massive corruption. I mean, like, I remember seeing, I saw syringes and stuff like that on the ground as a kid.
And let me add to this. Too, Pete, that it was the decline of the high-rise experiment too.
Yeah.
So that was going on, where the government was beginning to see very clearly that this whole idea of, congregating hundreds and hundreds of families in high-rise buildings where you were no longer getting maintenance, where police services were no longer found. We couldn't call the cops and have them come in our neighborhoods. You couldn't get an ambulance that would come to our neighborhood.
What would happen if you would call them and they just wouldn't?
They just wouldn't show up.
They just wouldn't come.
They wouldn't show up. They wouldn't show up. You couldn't get fresh fruit. You couldn't. I mean, there were no grocery stores.
We didn't have grocery stores.
It sounds like you didn't grow up. It sounds like you didn't grow up in America. To a lot of people listening.
Exactly. And in fact, here's a small thing Jason doesn't know.
Oh, good.
He may have heard at a family picnic or something. But early on, I say like when I was 14 or 15, I was like a runner for the Black Panthers, meaning Amamu Baraka, who was Leroy Jones. And Raz Baraka is now the current mayor of Newark. So I'm talking about his father. We did a lot of community things in our own neighborhoods because we didn't have the access. We didn't have the resources. So we did things like go to the grocery store, buy groceries far, far away from where the projects was, ride our bicycles or walk and bring it back to the senior citizens who couldn't get to the stores. We protested and we picketed the Acme market and the local markets that sold us bad fruit, that sold us rotten meat, because that's all. They would bring in the things that had expired and literally sell them in the markets that were closest to us.
Wow. So you created your own kind of community infrastructure by organizing because you could not depend on the local, state, and obviously federal government to do just the basics.
Fair and what was just.
Expired meat from white grocery stores in the suburbs
was brought to us.
Expired meat from white grocery stores in the suburbs was brought to them. You couldn't get the police to come anywhere. You couldn't get hospitals. You couldn't get medical care. There are stories that I learned later in life about like the amount of violence that police inflicted upon my mom and my dad.
Yes.
When they were growing up, and then when they were married, and then like when they had my brother when they were younger. And my memories of Newark are mostly kind of a hollowed out city. That was not a particularly safe place to be. And I remember, and I say this because, you know, at least from like where my politics stem from, I say this because it's not just a matter of like cities are bad. Everybody can say cities are bad.
Right.
But like, I remember when it wasn't that bad.
Correct.
I remember when
That's
you
right.
go to the parks. So
absolutely.
You can't just say it was like black people have a pathology or blah, 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 blah. No, there were things that Reagan was doing in the 80s when I was a little baby. There were things that Reagan and Bush did in the 80s and 90s that hollowed out these cities, that destroyed the job opportunities and made these cities, you know, unlivable. By the time Cory Booker came in, like he was like a freaking savior.
Yeah.
Because of what the cities have been subjected to for so long.
And let me add this too. I don't want this lost in the narrative, because I am a product of all of that. And I think sometimes when people talk about the inner city, the ghetto, the subcultures of life, that they forget that there's still people holding on to a sense of community. And our sense of community, it never ebbed. There were still people eking out a livelihood out of honesty. There were still people who had no other place to go but lived with values and hopes and dreams. And even though you had to live in that climate, you were as much a victim to some of those types of things as the people who were perpetrating them. So we're not monolithic. Black people are not all the same. And poverty has nothing to do with character. Poverty has nothing to do with sense of hope. Poverty has nothing to do with your sense of wanting something better. And I think, Jason, one of the stories you might want to tell Pete about is when you came to visit your grandmother as an adult. And when you talk about that sense of community and how grandma, she just had this sense of hope and value for all people, and they respected her, even the thieves.
So my grandmother, you know, Ida Clark was she was city housing commissioner for almost 20 years.
Yes.
You know, for any of your tri-state area people to remember, Sharp James, who was like mayor for life in Newark, that had that documentary Street Fight about him. Sharp James was my mom's gym teacher in high school.
Correct. That's correct.
And
elementary school.
And then he became a big union guy. And then he ends up becoming mayor. He's the guy who Cory Booker ran against twice and everything else like that. And I remember the first time I went and visited my mother, I was visiting my grandmother in Newark. She was getting older, and I was like, "Hey, I'm coming home from UVA, and I'm a big grown adult, and I'm gonna go walk out with my grandma." And so we're walking through the street, and we're walking just a couple blocks away from the senior living, just still sort of tenement sort of thing. And we're walking by these dudes who they have the back of their car, the trunk is opened up, and it's like the Matrix. There's every single
guns, drugs,
shotguns, there's handguns, there's knives, there's grenades, there's all this stuff.
Don't forget the videos.
Yes, and the videos and the DVDs. Just open air weapons.
Open air market.
Right? They were for sale?
Yes.
Just right on the street.
On the street with the trunk open. Yeah,
with the trunk open.
I want you to understand the expanse of inventory. That's why
exactly. Yes. The quality of materials
exactly.
that they have available.
You can get your guns,
your discount.
You can get
it's like a little Walmart in the trunk.
Exactly.
You had AR-15s and maybe an inflatable for the pool.
And red box.
Wow.
So
Entrepreneur.
I see this and I'm terrified. I'm like, oh shit, it's it's this gun deal, whatever. So I'm trying to steer grandma away because I'm seeing crime. And my grandmother sees this and of course walks away from me because that's what grandmother does. And she's like, what are you boys doing? And these guys, I'm not kidding, Pete, tucked in their chains, took off their hats. Oh, we're sorry, Miss Clark. We're sorry, Miss Clark. We didn't mean to do anything. Shut down their gun dealing. And we're apologizing to my grandmother.
Absolutely.
You boys know you're not supposed to do that. So we're sorry, Miss Clark. We're gonna move. We're gonna move somewhere else. Blah blah blah. And she's like, okay. Now God bless y'all. Blah blah blah. And then she comes back to me, and we keep walking. I of course am terrified because I'm the grandson. Guys selling weapons move. They move because they saw my grandmother.
That's right.
Knew that's not something you're supposed to do around Miss Clark's neighborhood.
That's right.
These are the people that I come
Ida
from.
Clark is a legend there.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a house. Cory Booker named a low-income housing development after her.
I'm serious. We come from good stock. We do. And like I said,
I'm the underachiever.
As awesome as my mother was, I pale in comparison.
Well, let me ask you, I'm being limited by your son to 30 tight minutes for some. I mean, I don't know what
that gives us till we got another 8-10 minutes. Yes.
All right, because they're gonna have to be a part 2 and a part 3. We're gonna launch our own series right here. But what happened after high school? You have your son, and then what, did you go to college right away? Did you? I mean, how did?
In fact, I applied for colleges while I was actually expecting. And when I delivered my son, I went immediately into college, Newark State. It was a Newark State Teachers College at the time, and it's now called Kean University, Kean.
Yep.
So college was always on the map. My mother was the type of person where you could get off track, but you got right back on track. So there was no excuse. My life changed tremendously once I became a parent because I had to jump right into adulthood. So it meant right out of high school, while my girlfriends, many of them attended the prom and started doing, teenage fun things. I was a mom. I had to work. I worked. I went to school. I ran a household. I had to take 2 buses to get to school. I had to get back, pick up my son from daycare. My mother would not keep him, and she didn't work because she wanted to teach me how to be responsible as a mother. And, the joke in the family that everybody laughs about now, my mom is gone. When we get together for family picnics and cookouts, it's the one story that everybody likes to tell is, poor Geri didn't get to go to her prom, and because on that night in particular, again, living in the projects, most of the kids from the local high schools right in our neighborhood, they were all dressed to the nines and taking pictures. And many of them came through my mom's house to say hi to Miss Clark. And she would be taking photographs and everybody going, oh, absolutely. And I'm sitting there with Jason's brother, my son, and I asked this particular night, prom night, I remember I said, and I said this to their dad too, I said, ask mom, because we were living there, we were married, but she was charging us to stay in what was my old room. That's another thing too. I used to stay for free. And when I got pregnant and married, I paid to stay in my old room.
Wow.
And so I said we were talking to each other, whispering, because we wanted to go out on that prom night so we could at least, celebrate in some way.
Right.
And it didn't matter. I was valedictorian. That was all. I had already been accepted to Kane College. That was nothing that didn't mean anything to my mother. I said, can we go to the movies? And she said, you have money to go to the movies? I said, Mom, it's $1. It's $1. Dollar movie, the Adams Theater on Branford Place in Newark.
Uh-huh.
And not only that, Pete, my uncle worked there as a police officer doing security. More often than not, I could get in for free and use $1 for popcorn.
There you go.
So that was the plan for that night. That was the big, subversive plot that we had. And my mom said, as clearly as I'm speaking to you, if you have $1 to go to the movies, I'm not charging you enough to stay here.
Oh! Did you go to the movie?
We did not go to the movies. We did not. So, that lives in infamy for me because my mother's birthday was it was August the 15th. So it's pretty recent. And I always think about her every day, but especially on her birthday. And I think if I'm being really honest at my age now, had she let me go to the movies, had she taken more of a part in raising my children, had she given me a break because I had become a teenage mom and had a child, had she backed off and said, your life is over, I wouldn't be here today. Mm. And so I'm so grateful for, we call it tough love, call it what you want, but I'm so grateful that she saw beyond my situation and even my life beyond her lifetime. And she wanted much better for me. And even though it looked like I had gone off the rails a little bit, she wasn't going to be an enabler and say, oh, that's fine. You can join the ranks of statistics and become a welfare mom and just have more children and then end up living here in the projects, for the rest of your life. She wasn't having it. She wasn't having it. And so every time I felt a little discouraged, every time I felt a little anxious, when I got assertive about, well, you should be helping me and you should be a better mom, she reminded me that she was.
Well, I am blown away by your whole life story, and we haven't even. Was
that blown away?
I'm blown away about your whole life story, and I want to keep it going. But we here at Stand Up with Pete Dominic know that you did not have a prom, which is why we arranged. All right, everybody, bring it in! It's prom time! You're getting a prom!
An old band, they're standing right outside the house.
Some guy.
I've been planning this for weeks, Mom.
Ladies and gentlemen, turn around, Geri. They're coming in. Everybody's wearing 1968 tuxedos, light blue. Oh, man.
Gotta have an afro.
The afros, the whole genre.
Yes.
Well, let me wrap this segment, and we'll do this again, I hope.
Yes.
This was wonderful.
By asking you both kind of how far you think we've come, and you can frame this however you want. I don't even know exactly how to answer the question, but it seems like progress in America, if we're talking about civil rights, if we're talking about racism, if we're talking about sexism, it would seem that there are steps that we take forward, and then there are sometimes big ones, and then there are these steps that we take back. I think that the most kind of concrete step that we took back is the gutting of the Voting Rights Act, which was the signature achievement of the civil rights movement, just stolen out from under the country, specifically from black folks in certain states. How do you see your lifetime, your experience, and obviously nothing, as you say, is monolithic as an experience, but how do you see where we're at today? We wake up today with another shooting of an unarmed black man in Wisconsin. But we also see the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement and the actual respect that it's getting, not only from black folks who understand discrimination, but from white people for the first time. Yes. Attitudes changing. So how do you look at it, both of you? Here we are with a white supremacist as our president. It's 2020. We're in the midst of a pandemic. I have no idea how you can frame this, but I do want it from your point of view, both of you. Why don't you go first, Jason?
Yeah, because I want to hear what my mom has to say. So I will say this. It sounds crazy to say this, but I feel sort of humbled by history when it comes to this time, because like a lot of this stuff, I'm Gen X, so there was no growing up in the 80s and 90s, I heard about the civil rights movement from my mom and from my dad and seeing my grandmother's sort of political activism and things like that. But I never thought it would get this bad. And I tend to be a fairly realistic and cynical person. And I feel like in a weird sort of way that like when I am my mother's age or older, I will be talking to young people or my own kids or grandkids, something else like that. And they'll be looking at this time and are like, what the heck was that like? And I'll be like, we didn't know either. Like, we didn't know it was going to get this bad or it was going to be this bad this long. So like, it's hard for me to make that assessment. When it comes to racial things, Pete, I mean, I've shared a lot of stories with you. I think that when it comes to day-to-day living as a black person in 2020, it's certainly easier than day-to-day living as a black person in 1990. But when I tell you that how you're treated is so completely dependent on circumstances that may be beyond your control, just like my mom talks about how she was brought up and all the things that my grandmother and my grandfather did for her, right? Like, I'm where I am because of what my parents did. It's not because I'm the smartest person in the place. As much as I love to tell myself that, that's not what it is. It was my mom and my dad. And they're not together, but still did this good job to raise this black person who could function in this environment. And that's the stuff that worries me. The people who, the way in which white America today is comfortable with the existence of black people like me, but still pretends that I am where I am because there's something unique and special about me, as opposed to the trauma and the difficulty and the systematic racism that not only I experienced, but that my parents had to fight through and be lucky to get through in order to get me to where I am today.
Wow. Well said.
Well, from mom often, so this is a big.
Well said.
Podcast.
And let me wrap this up. First of all, sitting here my age, thinking back again to my mom, I'm a glass half full person. I am. And the reason I am is because we literally were birthed, we black people, Jason, myself, from kings and queens. We survived the transatlantic cruise, okay? without the buffets.
Well, you're really making it sound cruise and buffet are.
Yes,
you're the one making the jokes.
That's right. So,
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
You can get away with it, Mom. We can, but yes.
The reality is, we didn't get that Porter service. And some of us were strong enough, not just in will, but in body, in physical stamina, and maintaining our own composure, that we survived that trip. And then we were brought into a type of lifestyle that was unprecedented. I mean, when you talk historically about slave owners and slave holders within the African, diaspora, they never experienced the chattel life that we were introduced to in the United States of America. So having said that, and sitting here in 2020, ready to crawl to vote on hands and knees, stand in line for 2 days.
As I've been saying, through a river of COVID to a voting machine made of COVID, I would vote for a candidate named COVID S. COVID.
I'm going to be there no matter what.
Yes.
Because I believe that America is not great, but America can be great. And I think that as long as I'm here, as long as I have breath, as long as I can emote and galvanize and be a catalyst for people to keep moving forward, I will never be discouraged. I will never be put aside. I will never be silenced because, first of all, silent women don't make history. And I might not make it to the history books, but my history will be a griot story with Jason and my other son and my grandson and not even family, people who know me. I'll be remembered for that voice for those who felt like they didn't have a voice. So right now, where some people are cowered in their homes, they're hunkered down because they may be in that vulnerable population for COVID, I'm out helping people register to vote. I'm doing telephone bank calls. I'm driving around seniors that are 20 years my age and older to get them to doctor's appointments. That's what I'm doing. I'm voting. I'm participating in every local voting opportunity, primary, federal opportunity, and then I'm feet on the ground when it comes to attending community town meetings, working with my local law enforcement. I'm a registered substitute in the school system. I just did my first virtual online class Tuesday with a first grade class. So
wow.
That
must be really hard.
Oh, it was very interesting, particularly when they just leave to go to the bathroom. But nevertheless,
wow.
I am not dissuaded by any means of the rhetoric of the people who may be naysayers. We have a person in the White House who does not represent on the global stage, let alone here in our own country, what that position requires. And I have voted in the past for both parties. So it's a matter of what is best for this country, not what is better for you.
Well, on that note, certainly I am inspired. It's great to get to know about your mom. It's great to get to know you. I already know your son. I think I'm going to have to meet your grandson. These are great people and inspiring people. And in the next segment, when we talk, we're going to find out which Republicans you voted for.
Okay.
And we're going to hear about your career, which I hear was had something to do with the FBI.
It was phenomenal. Yes, it was.
I am so looking forward to that, and I am so grateful to get to know you and to talk to you and to share your powerful, inspiring voice with my audience. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
I got through it.
Jason, good to have you here. Okay. You guys, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Later.
All right, there they go, Dr. Geri Johnson, Dr. Jason Johnson. Of course, follow him on Twitter. Tell him you heard him here and that you enjoyed that conversation with his mom. I'd love to do that with them again, trying to schedule that right away. Wish I had more time with them. I could have absolutely kept going and listening to her story. But before I wrap it up, one more phone call that I made to my friend Pete, who was traveling from Oregon to Northern California 2 nights ago, right through the wildfires, and has quite a story to tell. I reached out to Pete because I wanted to put some real life to what is happening out in California right now. It's pretty scary. The scope of the California wildfires is just staggering, reads the headline at the New York Times. Fires have chewed through 1.4 million acres in the state this year. By this point in 2019, only 57,000 acres had burned. More than 1.4 million acres have burned across California. Firefighters now making some progress against the biggest fires, but California schools are grappling with fires and coronavirus all at once. So major concerns over poor air quality. I talked about that with Pete. They've closed schools, they've closed parks, and it's just absolutely horrific what is happening in California. And I reached out to Pete, who drove right through it with his family, and here's our conversation from last night.
Hello?
Pete.
Pete Dominic. What's going on, my friend?
You okay?
I am okay. I was, I don't know what I was doing when you called before, so I apologize. Or when you texted before, I apologize.
How dare you be doing anything else? I want to record what you and your family experienced. Was it last night?
It was last night. Yes. Our harrowing trip from Southern Oregon back to San Francisco took about 5.5 to 6 hours.
You wrote, just drove back from Southern Oregon last night through hellfire and smoke. All three of us had our N95 masks on the whole time. Who was in the car and why were you wearing masks?
So it was me and I was driving, and my wife, and then our 11-year-old son. And we were driving back from my wife's grandmother's house in Klamath Falls, Oregon. And we kind of needed to get back last weekend because, my son starts school this week, and we needed to get back here to San Francisco where we live. But the air was really bad from all the fires that are happening. And
so you said we'll stay another week, and it got worse?
Correct. So we were we were planning on, that was sort of the decision that was sort of made at the last minute. So it was on Saturday, we were thinking about, okay, so are we going to come back, during this time? And so we were frantically looking at all the CAL FIRE maps. And, at the time, the air started getting worse and worse in the Klamath Basin and Southern Oregon as well. And so we were thinking, well, it's going to be bad there. It's going to be bad here. So we'll just go. So we ended up driving last night, probably 4:00 local time till about 10:00 in the evening. And it was pretty smoky the whole way. And that's why we had our masks on the whole way, and you saw the picture that I tweeted to you, air quality was pretty bad all the way down. And,
what's your Twitter handle again?
I'm at PeteCoVO.
Got it. So that must have been treacherous. I mean, it must have been horrible.
So it was stressful for sure. And we were, and my wife was getting a headache from the bad air and stuff. I was
getting a headache looking at the photo right now. Did the masks do anything?
They helped a little bit, but my son's 11 years old. He can't keep the mask on the whole time. And so there was this whole struggle to kind of, just grin and bear it with the mask. And then, just just keeping the focus on getting back, when you're having to breathe in all this foul air.
Was your kid scared? Your son?
He was anxious. Yeah. He got scared about that stuff. And we saw a lot of lightning on the way back. So there was a big lightning storm, and as it got darker, you could see it more. And it was pretty intense. I mean, the lightning on the way back going south from the Oregon border, you could see it at the distance. It was just through the smoke, it was this orange flash. It was like one of those post-apocalyptic movies. If you've ever seen Mad Max or any of those early films, it was kind of like that, where it was just like, you're just plowing through the smoke and you can't see, the visibility is really bad. And then suddenly there was this big flash of orange lightning.
Jesus. Sounds horrifying. So, were you guys panicking? Were you trying to,
how
do you handle that? Oh, we're going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. Don't look out either side of the window, because it looks like everything's like the world is burning. So just
right. Well, that's what my wife was telling my son. And then, there was this whole plan because we were going to hit this interchange and we had to turn west to go to San Francisco. And when we looked at the CAL FIRE, which is the state fire department map, the one of the lightning complex fires had extended down past I-80 where we were going to go. And so luckily by the time we got down there, it was already burned and you could see like embers and, things because it was dark. And so, and my son was kind of like, okay, so is the fire going to be like right next to us, and all this stuff. And so he was kind of excited, but anxious at the same time. So it was one of those things where, but my wife was freaking out. Of course, we were kind of like, oh, I'm sure it'll be okay. But, it's one of those kind of like where you're the grown up and you got to kind of hold it together.
Oh no, I would have been screaming, we're all going to die. We're all going to be set on fire.
I turned on some like punk rock, like music that was really obnoxious. And I turned it on really loud as we were going like 70 miles an hour down the street. I'm like, honey, it's okay. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. Where's your wife and your son like, that's great for you to listen to when you're driving alone through a fire, but could you put on some Barry Manilow?
Right.
Oh, man. I mean, so let me just ask you, like, have you ever been through anything like that?
No, I've never experienced driving back during that kind of thing. I mean, I've driven through like where the visibility's been bad. So there's been like snow if I've driven from.
No, I mean, have you ever driven through like a hellscape like that where there's fire on all sides?
No, absolutely not. And I mean, it wasn't, and I mean, California is not used to this kind of thing. I mean, even though it's been happening the last like 3 or 4 years or whatever, and a couple of years ago, Paradise burned to the ground, and there was that documentary on Netflix and all this stuff. And I mean, we're still not used to it. I mean, and it's just the stress levels are just like, I mean, it's crazy with the pandemic going on and everybody cooped up anyway. So now we can't even find a reason to go outside.
My friend Dustin, who's a longtime listener, great guy, lives out near you, I think. And he texted me like the most kind of, I don't know, sad. He sent me pictures out his window, and one is beautiful blue sky and the next is like fire smoke. And he said, I already felt like I was on my wit's end with the world about a week ago. Since the fires broke, it's really getting to me. Not only is the world closed to COVID, and I've always said that the gym is my therapy, but now I can't even go outside or even open a window, on top of the general existential dread and frustration. Right. Not only 2020, but 2016. Yeah, I mean, like, he can't go to the gym. He can't even go outside because the air is so poor quality. Is that the case where you're at?
Yeah, I mean, it got a little better toward this evening, to the point where I was kind of like, well, maybe I should, do we want to go sit outside and will it be okay? And my wife didn't want to go outside. So it's sort of in I don't know if you ever look at that site, Purple Air.
No, what is it?
Oh, it's great. You got to look at it. Purpleair.com. It's really area specific in terms of air quality. So you get like, you can get down to the block in terms of like what the air particle
never even heard of it.
Is. Yeah, purpleair.com. It's great. We used it all the way, like the last few days we've been looking at it constantly because it's so accurate with like neighborhood air particle, contamination or whatever. And I think I told you over the email, like, you can look at, our neighborhood in San Francisco's kind of getting closer to the beach. So coastal wise, it's not bad. But like I said, if I just drive, like I could drive like a half a mile to a mile east, and it would just be like, oh my God, like I couldn't even go outside and I'd have to have a mask on and, goggles. And I almost feel like I need like one of those like crazy gas mask things that,
Yeah. I mean, who could blame you? Did you ever feel, is it gotten so bad that you think maybe California, you'd move?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I had that conversation.
Because like poor air quality, like you guys, if you live in one of the most expensive places in the world, as do I, outside New York, the Bay Area out there in California. And it's like, if your air quality is poor, your cost, your home value is, you can't go outside. And if that's the regular deal in the summer, especially, I mean, I wonder if people out there are like, I can't deal with these wildfires anymore.
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. People in...
Sounds like your wife really hates fire, by the way. I don't know. I don't want to judge, but it sounds like she hates the wildfires and everything that comes with it.
My wife's from Montana, so she's a lot more accustomed to wildfires.
Oh, really?
So I had this conversation on Saturday with her about, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay in California because, I mean, the coastal range is burning now. I mean, that hasn't happened. And people there aren't accustomed to being evacuated, and I mean, Big Basin, that campground that, I mean, I took my son there when he was really young, I've been there several times and like, now it's like burned to the ground, like really old buildings there burned to the ground. Like, I don't know what's going on with some of the trees there. I mean, some of the redwood trees are like thousands of years old. And I mean, it's really, really sad. And I think about like what's happening in my home state. And I just like, God damn, I don't know if I could stay here. I want to go up to Washington or like Canada or something, where there's more rain, you go up to the Pacific Northwest and it rains all the time, but so.
Well, give it 30 years.
Right. Yeah.
All right, dude. Well, I just wanted to get your perspective. I want to throw this on the podcast because I wanted to talk to somebody out there, and I got your text, and I was worried about you and your family, and that must be crazy. And I'm sure you did a good job keeping your cool. I'd have lost my mind.
I was my usual smart alecky self, which was helpful.
I would have definitely suggested we throw Julia out of the car just for kindling. Yeah. That's terrible. Well, yeah. I'm terrible. Yeah. I'm horrible. I'm trying to make a joke about setting my kid on fire to save the rest of us. All right. Well, I appreciate it, and let me know. Give me updates.
I will send you more pictures. Well, you got my picture of the wildlife is surviving, right, in the Klamath Basin.
Oh,
so
you sent me a picture of a bobcat and an owl in the same spot. Like, what is that? A compost or something? Why are there animals at that spot? It looks like it's some kind of a zoo or something. There's amazing animals in the same exact spot. That's what I can't get over.
Well, you know what it is?
A bobcat and owl feeder?
It's animals. Animals are drawn to water, so you should do this in your garden outside of your sheddy.
I don't want any animals drawn to my garden. What are you saying?
Why not? You just put the water out there and
because they'll eat my garden. I had to take the life of a gopher.
Nah, you just
God rest their soul.
It'll bring in like carnivores and other things that'll eat the gophers. You'll be fine. Just put some water out there.
Listen, if there is a gopher-eating animal that I can attract, you tell me what bait it likes, because this gopher really got me. Well, I don't know if I can bring a coyote out of my... You're like, yeah, a polar bear. I just got to get a polar bear on your property. It'll take care of anything.
Wolverine. You need a fucking Wolverine.
You just need a couple of Wolverines and a hyena. All right, Pete. I got to go put the podcast to bed. Thank you. Good talking to you, man. Good hearing your voice.
Likewise.
All right, talk to you soon. Later.
Take care.
All right, just a great guy, Pete Coe, out in California, Northern California. If you're out in California and you're experiencing these fires, you're thinking about moving out of the state or just want to weigh in, I'd love to hear from you. I know a lot of listeners do live out there in California. Hey, Ronnie. Hey, Susan. Who else is out there in California that I'm forgetting? I apologize. You got Joby and Dustin. All right, that is it. It is late, almost 1 o'clock in the a.m., and I want to get this up for you to listen to first thing on Tuesday morning, which it already is Tuesday. Thank you very much for joining me today and for your support. If you haven't signed up for a paid subscription, do that now, please. And know that you're not alone. And you never know when I might just give you a call and check in with you. Would love to hear from you. If you want a t-shirt, selling those now to pay for the studio, which I'm in, and the new computer and some other minor investments into this daily podcast. If you want a t-shirt, a Stand Up with Pete Dominic t-shirt, just email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com, and put t-shirt in the subject, and I'll get one to you. Okay, good night. I love you.